One of the oldest rules in Magic is that if you withdraw from your library while it has no cards, you lose the game. That rule was flipped on its head in 2011 with Innistrad. Laboratory Maniac made the inverse true, so that you win the game while drawing with an empty library. And almost a decade later in 2020, another creature printed in Theros Beyond Death changed the way we think about having no library. Thassa's Oracle is 2 blue mana for a 1/3 Merfolk Wizard that reads, when Thassa's Oracle enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Put one of them on the top of your library, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. At a glance, Thassa's Oracle reads like a typical blue card, effectively scrying you equal to your devotion to blue, which is always at least 2. Nothing incredible, but a pretty efficient rate for a 2-drop that could scale well in the late game as your devotion to blue grows. But the last 4 words of text is where the card went from forgettable to format warping. Decks that revolve around Thassa's Oracle are similar to Laboratory Maniac. They want to empty most, if not all, of their library and then cast Thassa's Oracle to win the game with its Enter the Battlefield effect, since your devotion to blue will always be at least 2. There's a variety of ways to do it in each format. In Legacy, Manaless Dredge could replace Lotlith Giant with Thassa's Oracle and reanimate it with Dread Return, after using Balustrade Spy to mill their landless deck into the graveyard. In Pioneer, Lotus Breach uses a combination of Lotus Field to generate mana, Pore Over the Pages to draw cards and untap Lotus Field, and Underworld Breach to keep recasting Pore Over the Pages. Most famously, Dimir Inverter uses Dig Through Time to delve their graveyard away. Then, they swap their graveyard with their library using Inverter of Truth. In Competitive Commander, Demonic Consultation, Tainted Pact, and Doomsday thin the decks to single digits for the win. The classic Cephalid Breakfast combo of Nomads and Core and Cephalid Illusionist also could mill your entire deck by repeatedly targeting Cephalid Illusionist with Nomad and Core's 0 mana activated ability. While some utilize mill, others card draw, and others still remove it while tutoring, all of these decks want to find a way to empty most, if not all, of their deck, and then use Thassa's Oracle's Enter the Battlefield effect to win the game. Although the two are similar in their overall lines of play, Thassa's Oracle and Laboratory Maniac have a few key differences that set them apart. Since Thassa's Oracle's win condition can be resolved without it being on the field, and doesn't need any additional pieces to win, it's less susceptible to interruption from counterspells or removal outside of a Stifle-like effect. Thassa's Oracle could also be used to simply scry and set up your next turn. On the other hand, if you would overdraw your deck, like from a huge, toothy imaginary friend leaving the battlefield, Laboratory Maniac is your only option. Although the shells vary from format to format, Thassa's Oracle has already been a defining card for Pioneer. Who knew that changing one of the fundamental rules of the game is bound to lead to some interesting deck creations?